The socialization of production and consumption under a fixed money supply. A fixed money supply does not eliminate redistribution. It merely hides redistribution inside changes in purchasing power. Both production and destruction become partially socialized through the monetary system itself, because every change in the quantity of real goods alters the value of the unchanged stock of money. The key insight is simple. When the money supply is fixed, any change in total capital stock necessarily changes the purchasing power relationships throughout the economy. This means that both the creation of wealth and the destruction of wealth redistribute economic command across holders of money, inventories, and productive capital. To see this clearly, consider an extreme two-person economy. One individual possesses the entire money supply. The other individual possesses all productive capacity and can produce 100 units of goods each cycle. The monetary holder buys all 100 units. He then consumes 99 units and keeps only one remaining unit. Since the money supply has not changed while the quantity of goods collapsed from 100 to 1, the purchasing power relationship between money and goods changes dramatically. The single surviving unit now commands the entire money supply because scarcity has concentrated exchange value into the remaining inventory. The monetary holder therefore consumed nearly the entire economy, while still recovering total command over future production. The producer must now recreate the capital stock from near zero while holding none of the money. Once production occurs again, the process repeats. This reveals the first side of the redistribution mechanism. Consumption and destruction are socialized through scarcity effects under a fixed money supply. As goods are consumed or destroyed while money remains constant, surviving inventories and currency balances gain increased relative command over the remaining economy. Future producers must recreate real wealth while selling into a monetary structure whose claims survived the destruction intact. The costs of prior consumption are therefore partially transferred onto those who recreate capital afterward. But consumption itself is not economically homogeneous. Some forms of consumption are intermediate stages of future production. Food consumed by workers, fuel consumed by machinery, or education consumed by engineers may reduce present inventories while simultaneously increasing future productive capacity. In these cases, consumption functions more like capital transformation than pure destruction. Terminal consumption is different. Terminal consumption destroys capital without generating corresponding future productive output. It reduces the quantity of real goods while leaving monetary claims unchanged. Under a fixed money supply, this produces an effect structurally analogous to inflation. The monetary claims within the economy remain constant while the stock of real goods falls. The ratio of money to goods therefore rises. Scarcity increases the command power of surviving currency balances and remaining inventories relative to the diminished stock of goods. In this sense, pure consumption acts as a destruction-driven inflationary force against real capital. The paradox is that this inflationary effect can coexist with later deflationary pressures during renewed production. After destruction reduces available goods, surviving money holders and surviving inventories gain increased relative command over the economy. When producers later recreate capital, they must sell into a system where scarcity already concentrated purchasing power elsewhere. Thus, terminal consumption under a fixed money supply socializes part of its cost across future producers. But the process also works in reverse. Suppose production expands dramatically while the money supply remains unchanged. Now more goods compete for the same stock of money. Scarcity falls. Exchange ratios throughout the economy adjust downward relative to the expanded stock of goods. In this case, the gains from increased productivity are distributed across all money holders through increased purchasing power. Consumers benefit from greater abundance because each monetary unit can now command a larger quantity of goods. But production also redistributes against holders of pre-existing inventories. When new goods enter the economy, they dilute the relative scarcity of already existing goods. Owners of existing inventories experience a decline in the exchange value of their holdings because abundance reduces scarcity premiums. Suppose someone owns the only 100 shares in existence. Under a fixed money supply, Those shares command a certain proportion of total purchasing power. Now another producer manufactures 100 additional shares. The original owner's inventory has been diluted. Even though the money supply remained unchanged, the relative scarcity of shares fell by half. The exchange value of the pre-existing inventory declines relative to the broader economy. Thus, production itself contains a redistributive mechanism. The producer of new steel, housing, food, or consumer goods does not merely create wealth in isolation. The increase in supply alters exchange ratios throughout the economy and redistributes purchasing power away from holders of scarce pre-existing inventories toward consumers and newly produced capital. This creates a profound symmetry. Destruction concentrates value through scarcity. Production disperses value through abundance. Under inflationary monetary systems, dilution occurs through expansion of monetary claims. Under fixed monetary systems, dilution occurs through expansion of real capital stocks. The redistribution mechanism never disappears. It merely changes layers. Thus, a fixed money supply socializes both sides of economic activity. Production redistributes through abundance effects. Destruction redistributes through scarcity effects. Terminal consumption concentrates purchasing power into surviving monetary claims and inventories. New production dilutes the scarcity value of pre-existing inventories. In all cases, changes in real capital stock redistribute economic command through the unchanged monetary denominator. This creates a profound structural consequence. Holders of money and inventories participate in gains and losses generated by aggregate economic changes regardless of whether they directly contributed to production or destruction. Under a fixed monetary regime, ownership itself becomes partially exposed to fluctuations in total capital stock. This means that hoarding money or scarce inventories is not economically neutral. Holding money becomes a claim on future productivity growth because increases in production increase abundance relative to currency balances. Holding scarce inventories becomes a speculative claim on future scarcity conditions. At the same time, holding money or surviving inventories during periods of capital destruction can preserve or even increase relative command over the remaining economy. The monetary system, therefore, embeds a form of passive participation in society's productive and destructive processes. This is why fixed supply systems cannot truly isolate ownership from redistribution. Redistribution simply occurs indirectly through changing exchange ratios instead of explicit monetary expansion. Inflationary systems redistribute purchasing power through monetary expansion detached from production. Fixed supply systems redistribute purchasing power through fluctuations in scarcity and abundance detached from corresponding monetary adjustment. In both cases, the relationship between money and real productive capital becomes distorted whenever monetary claims fail to track changes in actual productive capacity. The deeper issue is therefore not merely inflation or deflation. The deeper issue is whether the money supply dynamically reflects changes in total capital stock. If money expands proportionally with production and contracts proportionally with destruction, then monetary claims remain aligned with productive contribution. Purchasing power remains relatively stable because the ratio between money and capital stays synchronized. But if money remains fixed while capital fluctuates, then holders of money and inventories gain exposure to economic changes independently of direct productive participation. Under such a system, producers partially subsidize money holders through increased abundance. New production dilutes the scarcity value of pre-existing inventories. Future producers partially absorb the costs of prior consumption and destruction. Scarcity concentrates value into surviving goods and monetary claims. Economic command becomes increasingly detached from ongoing production. The fixed money supply, therefore, transforms money holders and inventory holders into residual claimants on fluctuations in aggregate scarcity and productivity. In this sense, a fixed monetary system does not abolish the socialization of economic gains and losses. It universalizes them through the price system itself.